Introducing Alicia Pribble from speech class.
Woo! Hi everybody, well, thank you very much. Having a well-trained ministry team is really, really great, and it's super awesome to be able to have. But that's not going to mean anything if you can't get booked to travel anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So many of you guys have been with us for a while, and now you're wondering, how do you start your own team? How do you get them booked different places? And I'm going to take some time today to tell you a little bit about how we get that accomplished. There are three main things I'm going to hit on today. One is just connecting with the pastor. That's the initial booking process. Then it's building and creating the itinerary. So how do you do that? And then it's actually initiating the team to go out and to be able to do the trip that they have planned for them. So back to connecting with the pastor. That's the very first step. That's where we have to start. Connecting with the pastor is super important because obviously you can't go to their church if they don't know who you are. There's two different ways that you're going to be booking that trip and connecting with the pastor. Most of the time you're going to already know the pastor. It's going to be somebody that you met before, someone that you've already connected with, maybe an acquaintance level or maybe even a friendship. So that's one way of connecting. Another way will be cold calls. So I'm going to go over both for you so you can understand how to make those calls. A basic pastor is someone that you've already had a connection with, you've already made an acquaintance with. Those are super easy. What's great about those is you've already made a connection, so when you call again, before you begin to do the professional conversation about getting them on your calendar and booking that trip, you want to connect with them personally. Take some time to ask them how they're doing, how their family's doing, and connect with them on that level. Then the second thing that you're going to want to do is just build that professional conversation about when is a good time for us to come, and explain a little bit about what your team specializes in. Every team is different. Your team may be better at serving. Your team may be better at stage performances, doing worship or doing music. Others are better at performing arts. So you're going to want to specify what your particular team specializes in so that it can best serve that church and that pastor, okay? If you are calling a pastor you've never spoken to before, maybe you were given the contact information by someone else, or if you have a pastor that you literally just looked up online because you have an opening in your schedule and you're wanting to book something in that area, there's some different things you can do. There's a lot of loud music, so just bear with me as we continue, all right? So if you're calling a pastor that you've never met before, you just looked him up online, it's going to be important that you practice that call. Get with a friend, sit face to face, and just pretend that that's the pastor. Walk through it with them, introduce yourself over and over again. I'm telling you that because it's really important, because you can get on that phone and you're like, I'm not sure, and you really want to make sure it's solidified exactly how you're going to introduce yourself and introduce your team, because that's your first impression. You have the disadvantage, you can't see their facial expression, so you don't know if they're tired, if they're bored, if they're actually connecting with you, so that's why it's important that you practice beforehand. If you're connecting with someone that you got their contact information from someone else, address that. Tell them, hey, I picked up your contact information from so-and-so. They were given to me to connect with it about this. And so that'll kind of open the door a little bit easier for you. So those are different ways that you can do that, all right? Once you've connected with the pastor and you've booked the trip, the next thing you want to do is begin to itinerate the trip, okay? I actually have some information for you today here to show you, and this is just a basic itinerary. On this, what I usually do is list all of the contact information right off the bat, because the reality is you may not always be available to go with your team on the trip, and so it's good to have that information even if you can go, so it's easy and accessible to everybody on your team. So I begin by listing that. From there, I use the schedule in order to know what's happening each day that we're going to be there and each hour that we're going to be there. You don't have to be so specific, so if every hour isn't booked, that's all right, give yourself a break, but just in blocking out your time schedules will really help your team know what to do and where they're going to function. If it's a serving trip, you're going to want to know what kind of service you're going to be doing, also finding out what things they need to bring with them. Maybe they're painting, they need to bring the appropriate attire to do that. If you're booking a service, a ministry time where they're on stage, that's where you're going to begin asking the pastor, okay, are we going to be playing worship? How long is the set? How long do you normally go? When do you start your service on a normal basis? When do you end your service? And those kind of things the pastor's really going to appreciate, because you're really conforming to what they're doing and you're there to serve them. It's not all pastors want you to come in and just take over, right? So we're there to really serve them as much as possible, and so you're going to want to adapt to whatever works best for their church and their community with it they normally do, all right? So that's booking your itinerary. From there, I go into building schedules, and we'll go over that in a different session. But this is just the basics of itinerary. Once you build the itinerary, then you break it down. So you would break down, say say that you're doing a service from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you need to build a separate schedule that's going to break that down according to, who goes on stage when, how long they're on there, what songs you're doing, when the pastor's speaking, are they doing offering, and break that out on a separate schedule. I really suggest that because it helps your team know what's going on, and you can send it to the pastor ahead of time, and they really appreciate that also because they know, one, you're professional, you guys have done this before, you prepared yourself, you've done your homework with them, and then you've also communicated not only to their techs, those who are going to come in and help serve you guys, but also to your team so that they can come in and do a really excellent job for any occasion, whether they're just serving or whether they are doing stage ministry. So that's a big part of it. And then the next thing is just actually doing the trip. How do you empower your team to really do that trip? You've got it booked, you've got the itinerary made, and it's going to be more than just handing them the piece of paper with the schedule, right? Just handing them a breakdown, the itinerary, giving that to them is not going to be enough for your team to have a successful trip. You need to train them. You need to walk them through how they should act, how they should respond to a pastor. That's really important when they get around a pastor. It can be really easy to stay making the same old jokes that they always make. It can be really easy for them to kick back, when they walk into someone's house and pop their feet up on a table, because everybody's been raised different, they have different backgrounds. So you're going to walk them through and train them how to do that. When they're on the trip, they can follow the itinerary. It's important to appoint a leader for your team that's going to help manage the time that they're there. And that's just going to be a person that connects face-to-face with the pastor. If you're there, the best person would be you because you've already made that connection with the pastor. But if you can be there, appoint a leader that can be the liaison between the senior pastor and the rest of your team, knowing when to be where they need to be and what they need to be doing and during those time periods. And all of these things are going to really help you have a successful trip. So remember, just because you've got a great ministry team isn't going to make a successful trip. What's going to make a successful trip is having the time to connect with the pastor right off the beginning, booking that trip out, building an itinerary, creating it to fit the pastor's schedule, fit the church's schedule, your team's schedule, and then lastly, empowering your team to have a successful trip by giving them the tools that they need to do so and do it with the best possible way. Is that cool? Any questions at this time? No? Alright, well, it's been great meeting with you guys.